Miami-Dade County announced today that it has finished counting votes for the 2018 election. But photos obtained by New Times show scores of mail-in ballots sitting inside an Opa-locka mail distribution center, the same center that was evacuated last month after alleged mail bomber Cesar Sayox's pipe bombs passed through the facility. Several local activists demonstrated outside both the mail facility and at the Miami-Dade County Elections Department to try to bring attention to the ballots. Two sources who spoke with New Times allege hundreds of ballots might still be inside. Susie Trutti, a spokesperson for the Elections Department, told New Times her office was aware of the ballots but confirmed nothing else about them. She said that, per state law, any ballots not delivered to the Miami-Dade Elections Department by 7 p.m. on Election Day could not be counted toward the 2018 total. "We do our best to educate voters that, if you're voting vote by mail, then your ballot had to be at the Elections Department by Tuesday, November 6, she said. Not everybody mailed back in time. Asked whether the ballots had been sitting inside the Opa-locka Center undelivered on Election Day, or when the place was evacuated, Trutti referred questions to the United States Postal Service. After this story was initially published, Trutti added that the Elections Department ran daily post office pickups this election season, and picked up ballots 3 different times on Election Day. Ty Russell, a reporter with CBS Miami, tweeted minutes ago that he'd spoken with USPS and that it was not aware of any ballots being mishandled. From USPS, "We have no information to suggest any ballots were not properly handled and provided to local election officials. Per our established process, election leaders told me they'll receive mail-in ballots from people who sent them late but they won't be counted." At CBS Miami https://t.co/ish1mt, Ty Russell, at Trussell CBS 4, November 9, 2018. After this story was initially published, the USPS confirmed to the Miami Herald that the agency is still investigating the way the ballots were handled. U.S. Rep. Frederica Wilson's office also told the Herald that she spoke to the USPS and that the agency told her the ballots had been postmarked after Election Day and were thus ineligible. State law does, however, provide a 10-day extension for overseas voters and members of the military. But sources who spoke with New Times privately worried that ballots had potentially been sitting inside the mailroom for days or weeks before Election Day. Sources expressed frustration that more wasn't done to collect outstanding ballots before the 7 p.m. election deadline. One source who claimed to have reported the issues to the Elections Department said that the Opa-locka distribution center was understaffed and that there were not enough employees to handle the flood of ballots that had come in just before the election. The day after the election, a Twitter user posted a clip purporting to show a USPS worker in Miami explaining what was going on. The woman said ballots were sitting on the floor hours after the delivery deadline had passed. "We are at the Miami Elections Department chasing vote by mail and overseas ballots stuck at a post office processing center in Opa-locka. Election officials told us they were invalidated because they were not at their office by 7 p.m. Election Day. Absolute insanity." Earlier this year, the USPS delivered nearly 2,000 pieces of late, first-class mail to the New York City Board of Elections, including 533 valid ballots that should have counted in the November 2017 election, according to the public radio station WNYC. The margins in Florida's 2018 midterm races, meanwhile, were razor-thin. Ron DeSantis and Rick Scott currently lead their Democratic opponents, Andrew Gillum and Bill Nelson, by less than 0.5 percentage point each. Scott seems particularly nervous about a looming recount in his race and has sued the Broward and Palm Beach County supervisors of election in what appears to be an attempt to slow or stop the ballot counting process. Scott, without a shred of evidence, alleges Broward is committing election fraud and stealing the race for the Democrats, but the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, which answers to Scott, says no formal allegation of fraud has been filed. The race for agriculture commissioner is also headed to a recount. Progressive Democrat Nikki Fried leads Republican Matt Caldwell by fewer than 1,000 votes. Expand Miami-Dade County is a left-leaning county but does contain pockets of hard-right voters. It's quite possible a few hundred extra ballots from Dade could have changed the margins in the election. However, at the moment, it's unclear how many might have been left undelivered by postal workers, or if ballots just truly did not arrive by mail in time. The Miami-Dade Elections Department, however, says it is still continuing to receive ballots by mail. Those ballots, the department says, won't be counted. The Opa-locka debacle may explain why one Miami-Dade voter's ballot never made it to the elections office. Kirk Nielsen, a former New Times writer who lives in Coral Gables, says he mailed his ballot at a University of Miami post office on October 29 but learned after Election Day that it hadn't been received. "Of course I wonder if my ballot is sitting in the Opa-locka mail facility, along with many others," he says. "I hope there's an investigation." Having voted by mail in several prior elections, Nielsen says he knew how to check the Miami-Dade elections website to see when his ballot arrived. When he checked on Tuesday afternoon, however, the site informed him that his ballot hadn't been received yet. Nielsen briefly considered driving to his polling place to fill out a provisional ballot but ultimately assured himself it was probably just a matter of the website not being updated. When he called the elections office the next day, however, a representative told him his ballot wasn't counted and had never even arrived. He was disappointed there wasn't more concern, like, "Oh, well, we better try to go find your ballot," he says. On Friday, Nielsen still had no idea what happened to his mail-in ballot. "There are bigger questions," he says. "It's not really about how I feel, but it's like, where is my ballot?" Reporter Jessica Lipscomb contributed to this story.